This episode has been brought to you by JustNForm.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to JustNForm.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
So, in a surprising move by a federal judge out of Texas, Obamacare has been struck down as unconstitutional. According to CBS News, a federal judge in Texas on Friday ruled the entire Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional due to a recent change in federal tax law. The move, coming on the eve of the deadline to sign up for coverage for 2019, leaves 20 million Americans in health coverage limbo. At issue in the case is the individual mandate, which requires that people have health insurance. And if you recall, I'm sure a lot of you do, if you don't have health insurance, you were required at one point to pay a tax penalty. The penalty for not having health insurance was dropped to zero in the most recent tax legislation, potentially undercutting the Supreme Court decision in 2012 that the Affordable Care Act was indeed constitutional because of Congress's ability to tax. With no penalty, there's no tax. The plaintiffs, a coalition of Republican-led states, argued that, in the Texas case. A coalition of states governed by Democrats and led by California had a different interpretation, that the individual mandate isn't unconstitutional if people aren't actually being forced to pay penalties. California also argued that the individual mandate could be severed from the rest of the healthcare law. U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor sided with the GOP plaintiffs. The court, and this is what he said in his opinion, the court therefore finds the individual mandate unmoored from a tax is unconstitutional, his ruling read. The plaintiffs, the GOP-led plaintiffs, also argue that the individual mandate is so essential to the entire law, which is true, so that if it's unconstitutional, it individually is unconstitutional, the rest of the law must also be thrown out. And Judge O'Connor agreed on that point. Now, there is a few caveats to this. I just want to start off by saying the Trump administration has already said that they expect it to be appealed, and because of that, Obamacare in its current form will stay in place until the appeals process is concluded. Now, there are 5 Supreme Court justices on the bench right now who actually upheld the Obamacare law in 2012. So we'll see how that goes. Now, I do personally believe that this is a step in the right direction, despite the fact that it was a move led by the GOP. The reason why is because it's a little weird, right? Let's be honest. The tax penalty is how the Obamacare law works because it works in a shared payment system. In other words, if you're too poor to pay for health care, then somebody with money will essentially cover the cost for you. Now, there are a bunch of mechanisms that work along or that are supposed to work alongside that, like Medicare in respective states and certain states chipping in to make the costs more affordable. But that's not how it's worked, right? Pretty much every state has done as it's wanted to. There are states like New York where Obamacare is working perfectly because New York has the excess funds to chip in. Now, there are other states like Republican states where they may have the money, but they don't like Obama. They don't like Obamacare. They don't want to see anything he does be successful. And they do whatever they can to see it fails just so they can say that the Democrats failed on healthcare, just realistically. And there are other states where Obamacare is literally not a feasible healthcare plan. I've legitimately seen people lose retirement because what happens is the people who are hurt the most by Obamacare are the upper middle class, maybe in 1 or 2 person homes in their 50s or 60s who have been saving up for retirement, may have a nice chunk of change, or in the precipice or the peak positions and peak earning positions in their careers. They're going to be hit because they have to pay for everyone else's kid. They have to pay for everyone else who couldn't afford healthcare, single people who couldn't afford healthcare, but it's not really fair to them. Obamacare, I've always said, if you've seen any of my videos about Obamacare, this is nothing but a tax. That's all it's ever been. It was another way to tax without saying, hey, we're taxing you. And the worst part is, once again, you know how I know it's a tax? Because it's just like every other tax in the United States. We don't know what the hell it pays for. It seems like we're worse off from paying the tax than we would be better off by just, doing something like implementing Medicare4All. And we should. I think that if the Supreme Court strikes this down, it will actually pave the way for Medicare4All legislation, because eventually, people are just going to be, the legislators are just going to be tired of dealing with this. They're going back and forth with lobbyists. Mind you, the medical insurance industries are the reason that we have Obamacare in its current form. It was originally supposed to be single payer, public health care with a private option. However, that's not what we have. We have pretty much 100% private. And then even Medicare, Part A, Part B, Part C, you have to pay for those. That isn't free. Like you get the basic needs under Medicare. But when it comes to certain type of medications, certain type of surgeries, certain type of treatments, you have to pay for that. This is what happens when you allow the medical insurance industry to determine the outcome of Medicare. They have a vested interest in us being charged an absorbent amount of money for things that other countries, every other Western country actually, by Western, I mean Western Europe, Canada, hell, even some of the South American and Central American nations, any country that is modernized and industrialized has healthcare. And like we learned in Canada, the only time that Medicare4All becomes, shows a lack of feasibility is only when private industry gets involved. That's why doctors in Canada were trying to opt out of whatever, healthcare practices they had been previously participating in, because it was fine when they were participating in just public standardized healthcare. But then the privatization, even partial privatization, it becomes incentive based, and that incentive is money, and it muddies the water, and we have no idea how the law will work, nor do we have any idea how it works in its current form. That is literally how Obamacare works. They try to implement something like that in Canada, and it's failing because of it. So I am actually pleased with this result. I don't think we should be forcing people to pay a mandate. That's ridiculous. It's the stupidest thing that I've actually ever. This is like No Child Left Behind. Do you remember how No Child Left Behind worked? It was a policy implemented by the George W. Bush administration, and essentially schools that performed well got paid. The schools who did poorly because they were poor, they lost federal funding. So the schools who were doing well because they already had money were getting more money. And the cycle kept continuing. And then we went through like our worst education system in like history of the United States during that time period. It's like only a slight exaggeration. I'm not joking. Our education system fell horrifically. And we were even seeing schools close down because they cannot compete according to the federal standards. So that's what it's like, right? If you're poor, we'll penalize you. If you're rich, you'll be all right. It's stupid. It really was a great law until Obama and the Democrats and the Republicans let the lobbyists get in. But now you see this effort to get rid of Obamacare and go back to straight privatization, because the medical insurance companies have yanked all the money they could out of it. And now they're losing money. They've been forced to pull out. Some companies have been forced to pull out of states like Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Florida, and Utah, and states really across the country, because the states have realized they're just milking us. They aren't helping. They're only milking this. We would rather take care of healthcare our own way. So now that they can't make any more money off of it, all of a sudden they're all about fighting Obamacare. Now, this is also interesting. Just one last final point. We all know that the healthcare industry primarily pays off Republicans. That's why I find this interesting. This is kind of this is more proof that it's losing money. because Republicans take a lot. They take 80% or 70% of all lobbyists' money. And they wouldn't be doing this. I mean, yeah, they hate Obama, but they wouldn't really be, because they hated Obama last year when they promised to get rid of Obamacare. And they still couldn't get rid of Obamacare. It's because they didn't want to get rid of it. They just wanted to pretend like they're getting rid of it, just like they were going to get rid of DACA. Because the lobbyists told them they're not allowed to get rid of DACA either, because they rely on that, the muddied waters of undocumented immigration. So it's interesting that now they're losing money. We see this push, this mainstream push to get rid of Obamacare from the GOP in the background. So just some things to consider. I would love to know your opinions about this. Make sure you leave your thoughts in your comments below. And remember, more than anything else, people, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.